Hello and welcome to Patrick Come Lately Talk Radio. This is Stefan, your host, British by birth, American by choice. The Founding Fathers crafted some remarkable documents that led to the creation of a great country founded on liberty and self-reliance. I have lived in the Euro-socialist nightmare, and I'm doing what I can to return this country to the vision that the Founding Fathers gave us. We need to strive to rebuild that shining city on the hill, for without us, the world has nowhere to turn for freedom. For the next hour, I will be presenting news, views, and guests that help keep the true spirit of America alive.
Good evening, good morning, good afternoon, wherever you're listening to the show. This is Stefan, your Patrick Come Lately, welcoming you to episode 204 of Patrick Come Lately Talk Radio. The show tonight is coming again live from north of the border. That's right, another international show. I think I'm going to be up here for at least a number of weeks up here in Toronto, in the cold Toronto. Had fun getting up here, of course, with all the weather problems in the US last night, and actually ended up spending an unexpected night in Washington, D.C. But glad to be up here and broadcasting tonight. And for those of you that are listening live, do give me a shout out in the chat room. The chat room is in the bottom right hand corner of your screen. It looks like a little speech bubble. Click on that and open up the chat room and just let me know that you're there. One of the disadvantages of Spreaker compared to Blog Talk Radio, it doesn't tell me how many people are actually listening live to the show. So give me a shout out in the chat room and I know that you're there. I was coming up later than I normally do to Canada, so that's why I was traveling last night, because, of course, President's Day holiday in the US, and the Canadians have a holiday on this day as well. Gave me a chance for a long weekend down in Florida, one of my last weekends there, so that was quite appreciated. Also gave me an opportunity to meet with one of my listeners, Mirand, who lives in Celebration, which is where I used to live. He lived about a mile and a half down the road from me, and while he works late shift, so he's not always able to listen to the show live, he does pick up my podcast version off iTunes and listens that way and emails me often. And he and I have got together on occasions for lunch just to talk about what's going on in the world, and it was nice to meet him again. And I want to thank him for keeping me honest as well. He'd commented that a few weeks ago, 2 or 3 or 4 weeks ago, I'd advocated that we should vote GOP whatever, and then, of course, in last week's show, I was so frustrated with the GOP, I said, well, maybe we even should start voting for Democrats, especially where rhinos are involved. But so he reminded me that there was a little bit of a discrepancy there between what I'd said 1 week and then said a few weeks later. Yes, I guess it's all due to the frustration, and I think tonight's show we'll probably get back to that topic a little bit as we talk about frustration with the GOP and especially the GOP establishment. And as the invitation to the show promised, this is going to be a rebuttal to another email that I received from one of the people on my distribution list and who occasionally listens and hopefully maybe joining me tonight as far as commenting in the chat room, but we'll see how that goes. But before I start on the rebuttal, and I'll come back to that in a moment, I do want to talk about one thing that came up in the last few days, and really a question, are we going to fight out the fight for civil rights all over again? This concerns something that happened to the Supreme Court Judge Clarence Thomas, who was called an Uncle Tom. Now, conservative blacks are used to epithets from their brethren and other twisted regressives. Just wondering about this one. The comment fired up the Twitterverse because it seemed that this state lawmaker, Representative Alvin Holmes of Alabama, called this Supreme Court judge an Uncle Tom, possibly justifying it because Thomas is married to a white woman. Now, Holmes is trying to walk that back, claiming some misinterpretation of his words. But what disappointed me, I think, is annoyed is perhaps also a better word, is the fact that the regressives are always very ready to jump in very quickly anytime and someone on the right dares to utter anything that has any kind of racial connotation. But when their own people do something like that, crickets. The left is conspicuously quiet. Now, I'm relatively new to the US. I don't have the guilt or the understanding about America's relationship with the blacks. Where I came from, multiracial relationships are pretty common. Nobody thinks twice about it. And I thought with everything that went on in the 50s and 60s, the issue of a racial divide had been minimized. We agree it may not be totally gone, but it's minimized. I thought the 50s and 60s was about fighting for integration. And yet you have all these sort of very far left-wing black spokespeople who seem to want to separate us. Do they really want to go back to separate but equal? That's, to me, as an outsider, that's what it looks like. The only difference, perhaps, with the 50s and 60s is that they want more equal in the separate but equal. But it seems that's where they're going back. So just wanted to comment on that. And want to also mention that Thomas recently spoke at a small gathering of students and faculty at a Florida college, where he echoed previous statements on the not-so-subtle racism he remembers experiencing after leaving his native South. Here's a quote from Judge Clarence Thomas. "The worst I have been treated was by northern liberal elites, the absolute worst that I've ever been treated," the 65-year-old justice said. "The worst things that have been done to me, the worst things that have been said about me are by northern liberal elites, not by the people of Savannah, Georgia," which is his hometown. So we see, folks, the left is always about how they're for minorities, but let's remember the Democrats are the ones who fought the original civil rights bills way back when, and it wasn't them that were for. It's only now that they find a useful voting bloc or a bunch of useful idiots, as Zelensky once said, that they can use. That they decided now that is their constituency. Okay, folks. As ever, I'm just going to give you my little break, and we're going to go into the topic of the evening. The topic of the evening being answering some questions that I got in an email from an old friend of mine. And before we do that, just give a quick shout out to my author friend Edward Reapy, Rex Reapy. If you like fun adventure books, read his FEMA Camp series, available on Amazon, either in hardcover or Kindle. I'm looking forward. He's got another one coming out soon, which is, I understand, a little bit further away from the others, but still part of the series involving some of the characters there, so looking forward to that. As I've mentioned before, unfortunately, with this new environment of Spreaker, while the quality is much better, and I've heard that from a number of people now, so thanks for that feedback. While the quality is better, I still haven't got my phone capabilities set up, and I have to get that set up and tested, and I will be doing that so that I can bring in guests, so hopefully I can get that set up before Rex's next book comes out, and I'll like to get him on and talk about the book when it's there. But anyway, anyone else, as I mentioned earlier, anyone else listening, please do try and get into the chat room. Let me know you're there. As I've said, Spreaker doesn't let me know how many live listeners I have, and the chat room's the way to do it. Little green speech bubble at the bottom of the right-hand part of the screen at the bottom there. Click on that, open up the window, and just type in and let me know you're out there. Okay, so my old friend Dennis, that I know really from a very different area of my life, also used to live down in Florida, and then he moved out of Florida a number of years ago, but we, through our other lives, kept in touch, and he also occasionally sent me emails about the show and about particular topics. But his latest one I was a little troubled about, and I looked at it and I read it and I said, I've sort of reacted back to him in some of the emails that he sent, but this was one I thought, this is such a strange one from someone who said they were a Republican, although I have to preface that and say he says he's a traditional Republican and he feels the Republican Party has run away from him. But he sent this email out, and I think it was also sent actually to a number of his other Republican friends, and he had some questions that he wanted answered, because basically his premise at the end of the email was, unless you can really answer these questions correctly or with some good rebuttals, he feels that the Republicans actually have no real reason to be against Obama, so the only reason could be because of his color. Well, again, like I said, I'm not very sensitive to America's guilt feelings with their relationship with the black minority. But to see someone come in and sort of say, well, the Republicans must hate, or the only reason that the Republicans can possibly hate Obama so much is because of his color, is troublesome to me, because especially coming from Europe where race is much less important. It seems. Here it still seems to have a stigma, it still seems to have a lot of importance, and people are forever pulling the race card. So there is something about that to me is troubling. But to think that someone on what I would expect to be the right-hand side of the aisle to pull the race card about how we feel about Obama, it was troubling. So I thought, I'm going to take his email and I'll read some parts of it, some of it verbatim, some I hope he won't mind if I quote and kind of paraphrase. But I did want to answer some of those questions. Again, as I've said before, if I had the phone capability set up, I would have loved to have had him on and perhaps do a live discussion on this. I'm hoping that he might be listening now. I gave him the link to the show, and he said he might try and listen, and if not, I will remind him that he can pick up the recordings at archives.patrickcomelately.us, and the same to everybody else. If you are listening either live or to the recordings, please pass that address on to your friends if you think you like what you heard. But anyway, back to my friend Dennis and what he said, and it started out, first of all, he made a comment about a a news article that the IRS was taking steps to reduce lost tax revenues from those who own foreign businesses and are renouncing their citizenship to avoid paying U.S. taxes. Remember, the U.S. is one of the very few countries, I think there's one or two others, but that's all, that actually tax worldwide income of any American citizen. Even if you're not in America, you get taxed for your U.S. income. So a lot of people, if they're earning a lot of money abroad, have decided that they don't want that hassle, and so they're renouncing their citizenship, and that means they also don't get hassled by the banks, because the American government has been hassling the banks, very specifically in Switzerland, and so the Swiss banks are saying, if you're an American, I don't want your money. Now, it's only a very, very small number. We're talking about hundreds, maybe thousands of people every year, a few thousand, not even a lot. So it's a very small number. But Dennis said, well, let these bastards go. And he said bastard in the political sense that Uncle Sam is no longer their father. But he said also give these turncoats and their money no protection that an American citizen has. Right? He says, I resent like hell paying taxes for the U.S. military to defend their assets. They are no longer citizens. So, well, first of all, I'd like to see where these citizens that have walked away have been protected, but I'm sure they would. There may be some examples somewhere, but if you're talking about a few hundred people, somehow I can't imagine that all these thousands of people that we send abroad are really there to protect these people. We're talking about protecting American interests. At least that's the story the government gives us. Somehow I don't think it's for these people that are no longer citizens. But anyway. But then he went on to his other email, to the rest of the email. And I sort of thought, well, Dennis, you used to claim to be a traditional Republican, although now you say you're independent because you're fed up with the Republicans. And if you've, listened in any length to the show, you'll know I'm no friend of the Republican establishment either. But, leave that aside for the moment. Then I looked at some of the other things. I sort of thought, this email could have come from somebody from moveon.org or something like that, because they're very, very much anti anything Republican, anything right wing, anything on the right hand side of the aisle. And I sort of thought, no, well, let's look at some of these things. And Dennis does take me to task, and we'll probably get to this here and there about perhaps some of my analogies and some of the pictures I draw being very extreme and saying that's not really the way to argue. But Dennis, if I can be very honest and, just brutally frank between friends, some of your statements also are very, let's say, very contentious. But anyway, so I'm going. Let's work down. So the first thing he says is, Obama has done nothing in the way of dictatorial policies that have come anywhere close to those before him. And I think over the last few shows, I've been looking at a lot of Obama's policies and trying to work out what is going on. And I do think he's dictatorial. And again, we can agree or disagree over whether it is anywhere close to those before him. I think it is more than those before him. That's not to say that others haven't done similar things, and I've got one to list that have, and some of them might have been as bad. I think the big difference, though, between others and Obama is the level and the quantity. I think Obama is doing things from a level point of view a lot stronger, in some ways more obvious, although trying to keep a lot of it hidden, but a lot of it is coming to light, and also the volume. For example, we all know that Nixon used the IRS to attack his opponent. Actually, that was a tactic that wasn't started by Nixon. Can you guess who started it? actually, I'm told it was JFK. The Liberals' darling was the first person who actually set the IRS on his political opponents. Ooh, a Liberal doing that? What a strange thing. So they did that to key opponents. Obama is doing that in a much broader swath of people. Is doing that across all of all of the Tea Party, the 9/12 groups, religious groups. Is it less bad than what JFK did to certain targeted opponents? Was it less bad than what Nixon did? I don't know. But it just seems that Obama took what others have done and said, you know what, I'm going to ratchet it up a notch or two. Anyway, I see the clock has been ticking. Before we go to break right now, I do want to say hi, as I said, to Rex, Edward Reapy, and John Hancock has joined us. He also saying could not figure out how to something, and unfortunately the chat room here doesn't really show me the rest of the text in there. And however, nice to see you again, John. Glad you could find your way to this new site, and I hope you like the new audio, which is a lot better than at Blog Talk Radio. Anyway, time to take a quick break, folks, and I'll be back right after these messages.
Are you at least 62 years old like me? Could you use an extra $50,000, $100,000 or more to live a better life? Then please consider the benefits a reverse mortgage can provide to you. With a reverse mortgage, you can have your mortgage payments stopped altogether and get equity out of your home to live on. And you can use the money to help you live a better life. How nice would that be, not to have a mortgage payment? Qualifying for a reverse mortgage is simple, since there are no income, asset, employment, or credit requirements. However, you must be 62 years or older, own your home outright, or have a very low balance on the mortgage, and be prepared to live in it throughout the rest of the loan. Call now for more information.
800-704-1662. 800-704-1662. 800-704-1662. That's 800-704-1662.
I will never forget the day my son Jeremy told me he hated me and slammed the door in my face. I'm behavioral therapist Janet Lehman. Behavior problems can turn the child you love and your life into a nightmare. That's why my husband James and I created the Total Transformation, the step-by-step program that shows you how to fix the worst behavior problems and get your child to respect and listen to you again. No matter what the behavior, defiance, backtalk, angry outbursts, disrespect, we can help you stop it. Now you can get the Total Transformation for free. All you need to do is get the program and let us know how it works for you. You can keep it forever for free.
Limited number of free programs available. Call now. 1-800-259-1409. 1-800-259-1409. 1-800-259-1409. That's 1-800-259-1409.
This is Patrick Come Lately Talk Radio, coming to you live via the internet, via rebroadcast on WRSDB, the Red State Talk Radio Network, or from the recordings at archives.patrickcomelately.us.
And thanks for sticking with me through the break. This is Stefan, your Patrick Come Lately, and I'm talking tonight about an email that I received from my friend Dennis, and he postulates that the GOP, the Republicans, really hate Obama only because of his color, and so he's got some of his arguments. So we're talking about Obama has been much less dictatorial than others, and I sort of said, well, I don't agree with that. I think he's been more dictatorial, he and people in his administration. Are the other people that he mentioned angels? By no means. Many of them did do bad things, so let's look at Nixon. that Republican that arbitrarily signed an executive order slapping on wage and price controls. Now, Dennis says if Obama tried that, it'd be immediate demands for his impeachment and lynching. Dennis, I don't know if you've noticed, but there are plenty of people out there already demanding his impeachment and lynching. And wage and price controls, well, Obama curse, I think, is price controls. Wage controls, he arbitrarily now set a minimum wage for those federal contracts. Unconstitutionally. Maybe Nixon was unconstitutional as well. I think the frustration for a lot of the American people is the fact that, as I said at the beginning of the show, Obama is doing things that many others have done, but it's kind of pedal to the metal kind of approach that he has, and he's doing so much and so quickly and at such a high volume. Let's take that darling of the right, of course, Ronald Reagan, and Dennis rightly says, and I have to agree with him there, that he wasn't perfect either, and he basically tried to get around what the Congress was trying to force on him. It's called the Boland Amendment, if you want to look it up. But basically, the Congress wanted to stop Reagan and his administration giving support to the Contras. So these were the people who were fighting against the Marxists down in Central America. And so, remember Ollie North and etc. And they basically interpreted some parts of the Boland Amendment to be one way. Then Congress added some more laws that extended that to cover kind of the loophole they'd found, and so they found different ways, and they ended up juggling cocaine profits and arms to Iran profits. You may remember that scandal. So was Reagan perfect? Was he driving it? Is Obama driving a lot of what he's doing today? Or is it people behind the scenes like Valerie Jarrett? Was it people behind Reagan? Did he know? Was there plausible deniability? Who knows? Another point that Dennis makes, and this one I feel a little more, let's say, uncomfortable about that he makes it, and I think I have definitely a stronger rebuttal there. He says, okay, Reagan put several hundred Marines ashore in the Lebanon, and a simple truck bomb was driven into their camp, and they snuffed out a large number of lives, and there was little uproar. Right, and now we have this problem in Benghazi. 4 people die, and as Dennis puts it, the far right is demanding that we lynch Obama. Obama or dear Hillary. He says, "Where's the balance on the far right?" Well, this one, I think there is an argument. When we went ashore in Lebanon, while we knew that we were fighting the Muslim extremists, we didn't really know, I think, at that time, what we were truly up against. Did we? Let's be honest. Nobody knew. And so the fact that they would take this suicide bomb attack and use it against us in that way, were we really expecting it? No, we were blindsided. So, having had that happen to us, the Cole, the first World Trade Center bomb, obviously 9/11, and on and on and on, everything they've been trying to do since then, I don't think we can say we can be blindsided anymore. We're aware of it now. To me, that makes the difference. And so when you hear that there were calls for more security, we knew that it was necessary, and we didn't do it, that to me is worse than Reagan. So I think, yes, there are some reasons there to say, okay, we give Reagan a bit more of a pass on that. Dennis, you may not agree with that, but interesting. We'll see what happens. And let's see, time for my next commercial break. As I said, even though this is not going out on terrestrial, I'll try and keep to the timing as much as possible. So just in case, you never know, might get a nice invitation one day. So hang on, folks. We're going to take this quick break, and I will be back after these messages.
Limited time offer, 24-month commitment and credit qualification required. Cancellation fee, auto pay, and paperless billing and other restrictions apply. If you can't see the difference, why pay the difference? Switch to Dish for the best deal in entertainment. Only Dish brings you the best in entertainment for less than $20 a month. Cut the cable and don't get directed. Switch to Dish because at just $19.99, Dish saves you every time you turn on the TV. It's so simple. The same channels cost less with Dish. So since you can't see the difference, don't pay the difference. Switch to Dish for the best deal in entertainment. Get premium movie channels free for 3 months, starting at just $19.99. Dish saves you every time you turn on the TV. Call now to save with Dish. Dial 1-800-865-5017. That's 1-800-865-5017. The same channels for less than $20 a month. Dish. Call 1-800-865-5017 for details.
Why spend more than you have to on your life insurance? Did you know that term life insurance rates have fallen over 60% in the last 15 years? At the Life Insurance Quote Line, we monitor the rates, features, and financial strength of hundreds of life insurance products. For example, a healthy 40-year-old can protect his family with $500,000 of 10-year level term for less than $20 a month. Rates for women are even lower. And don't forget to ask us about the new term life policies that guarantee your money back even if you don't die. Since 1986, we've helped tens of thousands of people just like you save a fortune on their life insurance. Why not find out how much you can save? Write down this number and call today for your free quote. 1 5-minute call is all it takes. Call 800-915-9734. 800-915-9734. That's 800-915-9734. Rates, policy forms, and availability vary by state.
This is Patrick Come Lately Talk Radio, coming to you live via the internet, via rebroadcast on WRSDB, the Red State Talk Radio Network, or from the recordings at archives.patrickcomelately.us.
And thank you for sticking with me through that break again, folks. In case you don't know who I am, here's just a quick reminder.
Patriot come lately. British by birth. American by choice. Just like the Founding Fathers. The voice of the conservative resistance.
And so back to the email that I received from my friend Dennis, challenging me to explain why the Republicans so hate Obama and all the reasons why they shouldn't, and therefore the reasoning being it must only be because he's black. So let's go back to some more of the reasons. He talks about Bush II lying us into war. Hard to argue with that. I think we know now after the fact that there was a possibility that we didn't know, or that we did know that there weren't weapons of mass destruction there. Although, I have to say, in this case, that is one where you can still put a question mark. A lot of people say one way, a lot of people say the other. Failed to pay for the war. Can't disagree with that. Suspended constitutional rights, yes, of course, the Patriot Act, agree with that, and ramped up the intelligence community to levels not seen since World War II. Won't disagree with that. Perhaps part of that is a realization that we have to have that we are at war again, and that this is a world war, unfortunately. I think a lot of what's going on, we sort of tend to forget it because the current administration is trying to couch it in terms of an overseas contingency, whatever. but we are actually at war. We have people who really want to do bad things to us, and we need to, we need to be aware of that. Bush, he said, is responsible for Booz Allen, that's the company that Snowden worked for, and Blackwater, so bringing this outsourcing. Bush himself, I don't know. Again, debatable, but under his reign, yes, that did. The other one that I think is that he complains about Bush, and like I said, I'm no friend of Bush, of George W. at all. I think he did great things immediately after 9/11, but as I've said before, especially in his second term, towards the end of his second term, he became a big government, what did he call himself? Compassionate conservative, compassionate Republican, but that meant a big government one. And Dennis is correct in saying that bailouts started in Bush's term. However, I think one of the things that I will disagree with him on that is that a lot of the bailouts were necessary because of policies and spending initiated by the Democrats, who had taken power a couple of years earlier, so before the end of his reign, and so policies, economic issues that can be traced back to the Democrats. For example, Fannie and Freddie, that were our dear friends on the left were saying, they're very stable, no problems, we've got to keep them. It enables poor people to buy their own houses. The bending of the rules was that Bush's fault. Dennis says that's because of the far-right libertarian deregulation economic policies. That may have contributed some, but I think there was a lot more contribution on the side of the left, trying to mess things up and trying to force the banks, right, to give anybody and everybody loans when we knew that they basically couldn't pay them back. So, there we are. So is it all Bush's fault? No, I still think Obama is worse in that respect. Now, Dennis claims that Obama is a big business conservative, like all the old GOP moderates, or as we like to call them from the Tea Party side, the rhinos. He refuses to send more of our young people across the ponds to fight and die for stuff that's none of our business. That's what he said coming in, but he left. He did eventually get the people out of Iraq. He did say he was going to pull the people out of Afghanistan, and he's still got a lot of people there, and there's still a lot of our young people dying over there. So in that respect, and I have to say, when Obama came in, although I was very disappointed that McCain and Palin, and I think with McCain, I think we might have been just as disappointed with him as we are with Obama. But with when he came in, I have to say to some of my more liberal friends, I said, okay, I'm not happy with it, but I'm willing to give him the benefit of the doubt. Let's hope. He said he was going to be transparent. He said he was going to reform Washington. And I think a lot of the frustration is happening because he didn't do that. He promised almost everything that he promised, other than this fundamental transformation of America, which he's engineering. But otherwise, the actual things that he promised to the people haven't happened. And it's the same with Obamacare. He promised a lot of things there. If you like your plan, you can keep it. If you like your doctor, you can keep it. They're all turning out to be lies. And I think that's a lot of the frustration that is being exhibited by the American people. He says he's done Dennis says that Obama's done the only real alternative to control the religious terrorist zealots, right? Using the drones. Except that he used that way to also kill Americans without due process, which is unconstitutional. And if we are going to throw away the Constitution, then that takes away a lot of the fabric of this country and makes us no more than a banana republic, which is another reason why people are getting frustrated with him. And while you can say, well, obviously the big example is Anwar al-Awlaki. He was an American. He was fighting against us. And while there is some kind of process in the White House, there was no advocate to plead on al-Awlaki's behalf, and at the same time not only did al-Awlaki get killed, but his son, who was also American and might have been being taught, but being that young could probably not be held responsible and had not actually done anything, and if he'd have been tried in any court, probably would not have had anything, would not have been convicted of anything, and yet he was killed as well. Collateral damage? I don't think that's right to do that, especially where Americans are involved. Dennis contends that Obama is silently backing the Zionists. If you say so, Dennis, but everything I see tells me that he's the least friendly pres to Israel that we've had in ever since the State of Israel was created. So that one, I'm gonna call you out on. Maybe you want to email me about it, but I don't see him silently backing the Zionists. He says, even Obamacare has a balance of interest. It gives 80% of the GDP to big private for-profit health insurance to get even more filthy rich as they run the system. And he says, on the other hand as well, while it also assures that the previous free health care that poor Walmart workers got at the ER is now partially paid for by these people, because all of a sudden they're finding they're having to pay for stuff. Okay. This one I am going to call you on very definitely, Dennis. And again, if you want to email me, or anybody else wants to email me, please do so and let me know what you think of my rebuttal here. But I don't think, while it appears that Obamacare is a private market type solution, yes, it may direct 18% of the GDP to the private for-profit health insurance. To me, telling business what they can and cannot do, deciding what products or services they're allowed to market. Look up the definition, Dennis. Doing that is fascism. So, yes, and I know that's, again, a pretty contentious claim, and I know you've called me on that, and I'll talk about that in a moment, but that's fascism. So, yes, the big private for-profit health insurance in some ways are getting it, crony capitalism, but believe me, Dennis, I am no supporter of crony capitalism. So when you ask the question, Republicans, I think one of the things is that we have to look at your definition of Republicans, and I think this is one of the things with this call for a third party. One of the reasons is people are getting frustrated with the Republicans, because the Republican establishment support the crony capitalism, and I think it's the Washington elite, whether they're Democrat, whether they're progressive, whether they're Republicans, that's what people feel is out of touch with America. And yes, the crony capitalism, the rampant crony capitalism, and that's whether it's the Democrats in power or the GOP establishment, I think yes, you've got a point there, but like I said, when the government is actually controlling, and that's perhaps the Republicans, yes, they had the crony capitalism, but they were not telling the businesses what to do in a way the businesses were telling the government. But Obama is telling the businesses what to do, what they can and cannot do. That's exactly what Obamacare does. What products or services they're allowed to market, what they're not, and almost to a certain extent what they're allowed to charge for them. That is fascism. Now, I'm going to answer this thing about using the word fascism after the break, because we've come to the last break, folks, and just need to run through this, and then we'll be into the last segment of the show. So, folks, back after these messages.
Are you at least 62 years old like me? Could you use an extra $50,000, $100,000 or more to live a better life? Then please consider the benefits a reverse mortgage can provide to you. With a reverse mortgage, you can have your mortgage payments stopped altogether and get equity out of your home to live on. And you can use the money to help you live a better life. How nice would that be, not to have a mortgage payment? Qualifying for a reverse mortgage is simple, since there are no income, asset, employment, or credit requirements. However, you must be 62 years or older, own your home outright, or have a very low balance on the mortgage, and be prepared to live in it throughout the rest of the loan. Call now for more information.
800-704-1662. 800-704-1662. 800-704-1662. That's 800-704-1662.
I will never forget the day my son Jeremy told me he hated me and slammed the door in my face. I'm behavioral therapist Janet Lehman. Behavior problems can turn the child you love and your life into a nightmare. That's why my husband James and I created the Total Transformation, the step-by-step program that shows you how to fix the worst behavior problems and get your child to respect and listen to you again. No matter what the behavior, defiance, backtalk, angry outbursts, disrespect, we can help you stop it. Now you can get the Total Transformation for free. All you need to do is get the program and let us know how it works for you. You can keep it forever for free.
Limited number of free programs available. Call now. 1-800-259-1409. 1-800-259-1409. 1-800-259-1409. That's 1-800-259-1409.
This is Patrick Come Lately Talk Radio, coming to you live via the internet, via rebroadcast on WRSDB, the Red State Talk Radio Network, or from the recordings at archives.patrickcomelately.us.
And time is flying. We're into the last segment of the show. I want to thank everybody that's listened, whether you're listening live, whether you listen to the recordings. Do email me at stefan@patrickcomelately.us with your comments or questions about what I've been discussing tonight or any other shows. I want to go back to my email from my friend Dennis about why the Republicans shouldn't hate Obama, and is it that they hate him just because he's black? I mentioned that the fact that he's controlling Obamacare, so 18% of the GDP, even though it's cloaked in this private market thing, and I said basically when the government tells businesses what they can and cannot do, what products and services they can market and how much they can charge for them, that's fascism at a very high level of definition. And Dennis took me to task for using a picture of Obama with Hitler and said, that's way too extreme because Obama is not going to be putting people in camps and exterminating, etc. No, but I've explained a number of times that the way that Obama came to power and now is ignoring our Constitution is very similar to the way that Hitler came to power and started ignoring the Constitution. Will Obama take it as far as Hitler? I doubt it. I hope not. On the other hand, let's be very honest. Obama is very friendly with people, for example, the Muslim Brotherhood, that would like to do exactly what Hitler did to the Jews, they would like to do to us. They would be very, very happy if somehow they could get rid of a lot of us. So he's very friendly with them. So is he going to be actually doing it? No, but I just wish he wasn't so friendly with that kind of people. And if that's contentious, I'll be contentious. I'm not a shock jock, but, let's wake up. Let's not stick our heads in the sand here. There are some things going on there that can be very frightening, because giving support to these people of any kind can be very, very dangerous. John Hancock, my author friend, who joined us in the chat room, also mentioned, don't forget that Obama, compared to the other presidents, especially the more right-wing presidents, has a very compliant press. They let him get away with a lot more than a Bush. Anytime Bush did anything slightly out of line, there was a lot of outcry from the press, which Obama's not getting. You talked, Dennis, about frustration in the American people, and I think that's because they look at the press not calling Obama on some of these things, and they get frustrated. You had a lot more in your email, but I want to start rounding it out. The time is slipping by, and we're coming to the end of the show. And I want to say one thing. A lot of what you say, Dennis, talk about the far right, the Republicans, etc. I don't like to talk about right and left anymore, and I've said this in the show before. I like to talk about tyranny and liberty. And the liberty side, whether you call it libertarian, whether you call it constitutional, fiscal conservatism is associated with that, because through fiscal conservatism you reduce the power of the government. By reducing the power of the government, you increase liberty. I think I would agree with you, and this is also one of your later emails that I haven't handled here. You say yourself, the way to get away from all of this is to go back to the founding principles. I think that's what a lot of the frustration in the country today is about. The people, the true Tea Partiers, that's what they want. We're not what the left have painted a bunch of far-right nutcases who are totally religious nutcases, because religious extremism of any kind is wrong. But the true Tea Partiers want smaller government, less involvement of the government in their lives. Whether or not we'll ever get there, I don't know, but it's a good principle to be going for. So, Dennis, I haven't been able to answer all of your questions, I know that. Your conclusion was, at the end of your email, Obama is a moderate black man. That has unhinged the Southern racists, the extremist faction that hijacked the old GOP. But what about the fact that the Democrats were actually the original Ku Klux Klan and the original racists, and how many of them are left on the left? And remember what Clarence Thomas said about the liberal elites, that they were the ones that ever treated him the worst. So I don't think you can blame right and left. It's definitely, but it's tyranny versus liberty, big government versus small government, and I think that's the way I like to go. Anyway, folks, that's this week's show, slowly coming to an end. We'll see what pops up for next week. Lots going on. Want to thank you for coming. And once again, if you are listening to the recordings, do drop me an email. Love to hear from you. And, let me know what you think of the show, comments, questions, whatever. And maybe in a future show, I could handle your questions in one of the shows as well. Got a lot to talk about, but we'll have to save that for next week. So please join me next week. Thanks for coming. And as I like to say, when the music starts, TTFN, ta-ta for now. See you next week.
Thank you for listening to the show. I hope that you enjoyed tonight's topics. Whether you listened live, to a recording, or to a rebroadcast, I appreciate the time you share with me. We need to spread the message of liberty far and wide, so please tell your friends and family about the show. Thank you for helping to keep the beacon of hope burning. This is Stefan, your Patrick Come Lately, signing off. God bless America, and remember, L3, long live liberty.